Okay, so I'm going to be doing my thank you cards, and we're just going to scroll all the way down until we get to the listing details. And for this, I just want to recommend that you use terms that a buyer would look for. So, like for my thank you cards, it would be logo cards, insert cards, custom cards, and then general Etsy packaging. So for the title, you want to make sure to use all of the terms. Try to fill this out as much as possible. And if you run out of ideas, you can go on Etsy and search for similar products such as yours and see what other people are using for the terms. So the next category is if you had help with your product, if you used another company or somebody else helped you make the product, you had to list it here. So if it was another company, you would pick that category. So the next section is the actual category. So here I suggest you be very specific in what you are selling so that customers are able to find that exact product. So for this, I actually have it set to thank you cards. So it's a very specific category. And then here is just, colors. It's pretty self-explanatory. I'm not going to get too into that. And then we're here in the description, which is like the main thing for this video. But before I get into that, I just want to talk about this renewal options. I would suggest setting it to manual, even though Etsy automatically sets it to automatic. I would suggest this if your product doesn't sell after the first 3 months, and just use the automatic if your product is something that sells a lot, but otherwise I would just set it to manual. So back to the description, the first thing I like to add is just like a saying that is meant to attract customers. So for this, like for my business, or for other business people, to give thanks to your customers. So just add a little incentive of why your customers would want to buy your product. And then we're gonna go to details, and I just like to make these into different categories and use capital letters to make it more clean for the customer, and it's just easier for them to read. So I would suggest putting it in capital letters or putting something to make them separate. And for the details, I like to include the size of the product, any type of quantity I include, and then the materials I use. And then at the very bottom, I include something that I think my customers should be aware of. I just like to reiterate this because for these cards, people think that they can choose a different color for the background, which isn't the case. So I just like to reiterate here so that my customers are aware that they can't change the white background. It has to be white. So if you need something that the customers need to know, include it in the details. For this, I like to include shipping just because a lot of people ask me like how long it'll take for their product to arrive, or they're not familiar with how long my processing time is. So I just like to include that here because people think processing time and the delivery service is the same thing. So I just like to put it here. I like to include the delivery service I am using and how long that takes, and then my actual processing time so that they are aware that is not the same thing. Always include the delivery service you are using for that specific product as well as your processing time so that people aren't asking you how long it'll take for you to send out the product. And then from there, I just like to include the materials I use to ship out the product so that people know I am protecting the product. So any materials you use, for me, I always use a clear envelope just to protect it from water damage, and then I pack it in like a stiff envelope to make sure it doesn't bend. So any specifics, any things you use to protect the product, I suggest putting it there. And at the very end, this I like to include keywords, which I believe helps in my ranking. So this is basically the same thing as a title. I just include it at the bottom here in the description as well. So it's basically just copy and paste. And this just helps you get more noticed. I noticed that when I started doing this, my listings would get more views, so I definitely recommend this. And like I said, it's very easy to do. You just honestly copy and paste your title and put it here as well. That's basically it for the description. And the next category is the production partner. So again, if you are using another company to make your product or somebody else is helping you, you have to include him here. Etsy is very specific about this, that you have to include the company you are using. You can actually get in trouble if you don't include the company or the person. For me, I used to use Pure Buttons and Redbubble for some of my products, so that's why I have them here. So always include if you are using an outside company to help you make your products. You have to be very transparent about this. It's just a good business practice. How to do it is you just click that add a new production partner and you just put the name of it and where it's located, or actually I think you can even put it unknown. And then here is just the sections that you can include, and this just kind of helps again make it easier for the customer to see what you sell on your shop. So you can include a variety of different categories just to make the shopping experience better for them. And then for the tags, it's basically the same thing as keywords and the title. This here, I think you can put more. And again, I would suggest filling this out completely. Although sometimes it's hard because for me, I still have one, but I couldn't figure out another one to put on here. But if you can, definitely put all the keywords that you have available. Here you can add your materials that you use. It's not mandatory, but if you want to. And then here is just the price of your product and the quantity, and then you can add variations. So for me, I like to include variations for the quantity as well as the color of the cards. This just makes it easier for people to personalize their thank you cards. And then here, if your product can be personalized, I would suggest be very specific about the instructions. This just makes it easier both for you and your buyers, so you're not having to message them to ask them about what they want for their product. Just make it very specific with the instructions. So for me, my thank you cards, I would need their URL, their social media handle, and then of course their logo. And I actually put where they would send it to me because before I had it set to email, but I've been having issues with my email, where I wouldn't get some emails from some customers, so I just set it to Etsy messages. So just be very specific. Like if you have something similar to this where they have to send you certain things, like be sure to have them send it to a specific place, that you know you can get their messages, because sometimes when you don't and you try to contact them, sometimes it's hard to get a hold of them. So just be sure that it's something secure. And again, be very specific about your instructions. And here's just shipping. And that's pretty much it in terms of what to include for your listing. And then I just wanted to talk about, again, if you need something, if you need to reiterate something to your customer, I would suggest putting it in the pictures as well, such as here where I include my instructions again in the pictures, because a lot of the time people won't actually read the description. They will look at the pictures, but they won't read the description. So it's very smart for you to put anything important in the photos as well. And you can easily do this. I use Photoshop to make my pictures such as this, but you can actually use Canva and just use like text. But I think you can also include your logo in Canva. You just have to upload it